This is my review of Samurai Flamenco. Okay, so you remember how I said last time that they would have to face off against the 64 War Gods? Yeah, that didn't happen. That didn't happen on screen. So what happened was they explained that it's been several, I don't know, days, a week, who knows, since they got the message from the 64 War Gods from beyond, and that in that time they've actually been challenged by much larger groups, each getting sequentially bigger. So at which point Flamengers quickly begins to analyze his data and runs tests, and his data points out that not only have the members of From Beyond gone completely silent, but after projecting some numbers, he realized that their numbers may indeed skyrocket into the 60,000s. So yeah, it's clear that From Beyond has quite the army at their disposal. But also points out that since they've gone quiet, he feels like they may go on an all-out attack. And it's at this point where Konami excuses himself to go alert the Prime Minister, much to Shoichi's chagrin, and he goes after them. But the two have a bit of a falling out because it's Konami. He pongs back and forth between emotions a lot. So he's distressed one minute and excitable the next. That's basically Konami. But Masayoshi points out that he's really hoping that the data is wrong, and points out that he hopes that there's something else that they're missing. So at which point Kawara decides to go over his data again just to make sure. Meanwhile, Samurai Flamenco is preparing to go to receive the first ever National Hero Award, which is a big deal. But in the car ride over there, he has a nightmare about how he's at a meet and greet, and suddenly a monster shows up and kills several civilians, and it scares him that he's not able to protect anybody in that scenario. But yeah, he eventually wakes up to a startle while he's in the car, at which point Ishihara comforts him, pointing out that he's been under a lot of stress lately and that he should take it easy until they get there, which surprises Masayoshi a little bit, because as he puts it, Ishihara isn't normally nice to him, and while he immediately backtracks on it, he points out that he feels like she might have changed a little bit since he debuted Samurai Flamenco, and then she points out that he's the one who actually changed. So as she points out, when he first debuted as Samurai Flamenco, she was pretty pissed. She realized that he had essentially lied to her and told her that he wasn't Samurai Flamenco when he was. But over time, she was just happy of the fact that he's successful now, and that's all she ever really wanted from him. And points out that even though he's now a superhero, she'll still continue to support him as his agent, regardless of what actually happens or what comes. So yeah, it's clear that Ishihara doesn't really care if if Masayoshi is Samurai Flamenco or not. She just wants him to be successful and take his work seriously, and he does as a superhero, which he now approves of because it's helped skyrocket his publicity, and it's made him happier as a result. Eventually they do arrive at the Prime Minister's office to receive the award in a press conference, at which point he's approached by the remaining Flamengers, who point out that they actually did find some data, and it points out that they were pretty on the nose, and that there's apparently going to be an attack sometime in February, presumably of that year, because this came out in 2003, 2012. I forget. It came out a while ago. Is my point. But Masayoshi fearing for the safety of Japan, he goes to meet with the Prime Minister along with Konami and the remaining Flamengers, and at which point Konami and the Prime Minister get into a bit of a heated argument about what's good for the safety of the nation, because while Konami wants to evacuate everybody immediately, the Prime Minister wants to point out that this thing takes time, that things like this take time and preparation, because let's be honest, because as he points out, if everybody just suddenly knows out of the blue without any preparation made whatsoever, it's going to cause a lot of panic and a lot of problems for the entire nation. And he even points out, and even requests of the, and even tries to request of the Flamengers to keep the information a secret. And when Konami continues to argue, he slaps him multiple times and even though the Flamengers are concerned for their commander, Konami puts up a hand and tells them not to help him, pointing out that and then sure enough, the Prime Minister suddenly goes from being very upset and annoyed to just straight up desperate. And then he's literally lying on the ground begging for them to keep this information confidential until he has all the preparations in place. At which point, or at least until he has an answer. At which point they go to the award ceremony, and Masayoshi receives the first ever National Hero Award. And when asked for a statement, he stops and starts to think for a minute, and then finally says that he hopes he can continue to protect everybody in Japan. And then afterwards they go into a waiting room and wait for the Prime Minister's decision. At which point Konami walks in with the Prime Minister's decision. He points out that that they're going to evacuate all of the important people first and their families, so that way they have some sort of leadership in place for when they eventually do have to evacuate everybody. And also points out that the Flamengers should probably do the same, pointing out that it would help that they would have the requirements, and points out that that's the condition for setting off the all clear, if the Flamengers also agree to evacuate their immediate family and loved ones. And a lot of people are notably upset about that. Several of the Flamengers are notably upset by the fact that this decision was suddenly just made and they have no real choice but to follow it. And even Masayoshi points out that that's not really what a hero is supposed to do. And Konami, despite being visibly upset, receives a care package from Flamenco, which is revealed later to be what's actually inside it. Before leaving and telling them to prepare to evacuate their families and loved ones. At which point we see a montage of everybody trying to evacuate their families and loved ones to little success. Success. I can't speak. But yeah, they point out that. But yeah, some of them are able to easily track down their family members and get to know them. Some of the others aren't so lucky. In fact, some of them haven't even seen. Some of them aren't even allowed near their families anymore, and were pretty much outed from their families. So you can definitely see how that would go. Meanwhile, Masayoshi is contemplating who he should tell about the evacuation, and starts to go through his list of people closest to him. At which point he finally realizes he hasn't told Goto-san what's going on yet, and goes to tell Goto about it. At which point he finally discovers that Marimaya has been living in his apartment for however long she has been. And Marimaya is visibly upset to see Masayoshi at Goto's door, mainly because Masayoshi I guess she kind of resents Masayoshi for what happens, because it's kind of because of her that it's kind of because of him that King Torture didn't really respect her as a hero at all, and I guess she kind of blames him for that. Even though that's not entirely Masayoshi's fault. I mean, granted, when you have somebody to be compared to, then yeah, then yeah, you should probably evaluate your life a little bit. But it's pointed. But it should be noted. As I said multiple episodes ago, she is a terrible superhero. She does not. She is very selfish and does not care and does not actually care about the people she's saving. She only cares about looking good, and that's really it. And that's not a way to. And that's not how you're supposed to operate as a hero of any capacity. And if at any point you write a superhero like that in a story, you're doing it wrong. But it's done in this show to point out that yes, it's done in this show because again, this show is supposed to break down all the different tropes and stuff that are usually present in shows like this, and points out that yes, this is a kind of a thing that happens in a lot of superhero stories, and especially Japanese ones. So yeah, Masayoshi. So yeah, this is all a long-winded way to say that Masayoshi discovers that Marimai has been living in Goto's apartment for forever long, and confronts Goto about it, and Goto points out that he couldn't just turn her away, and couldn't even tell the agency because she threatened to kill herself if he did, and also points out that his girlfriend already knows about it and doesn't care because she knows that he would never cheat on her with anybody. And and the two finally have a bit of a actual discussion since Masayoshi became a full-time hero. So apparently, while Masayoshi has been dealing with all the monsters and the mega organizations and the evil crime syndicates and all that have been surfacing lately, Goto has just been doing what he does best, being a cop. He's been keeping crimes by common citizens down at an all-time low, while Masayoshi is trying to stop the evil organizations that are trying to destroy Japan. So while they haven't been directly interacting with one another, they have been keeping busy and have been trying to keep the ideals of keeping justice at all prevalent. So yeah, and eventually, after seeing how happy Goto actually is, and after realizing that Marimai is living with him, Masayoshi finally decides against actually evacuating Goto, and instead starts to contemplate who else he should save instead. But is really struggling in that regard because there are at least 7 people that he's trying to save, and he can only take 5. So he mentions as much when he meets Konami, at which point Konami points out that while the arm of the law isn't as long, the heart can reach out as far as it wants. And also points out that he's planning to defy the Prime Minister's decision, and then it's revealed that Flamin' Pink gave him a handkerchief that says "I believe in you." At which point Masayoshi realizes what he has to do, and then the next day Konami just disappears. We don't know where he went. He's just gone. And the Prime Minister is notably upset by this, and tells Masayoshi as much in his conference call with him, pointing out that he's visibly upset that the fact that the person in charge of the elite unit designed to take down evil organizations has suddenly just gone missing and nobody knows where he is, and also points out that they need to continue to keep the information confidential. At which point Masayoshi leaves to go to a shoot at the WoW show, and then Kono just appears out of nowhere and points out this is going to get interesting. He just appears out of nowhere behind Ishihara and says this is about to get interesting. And then case in point, about 5 minutes later, Masayoshi decides to go against the Prime Minister's orders and tells everybody on live television to evacuate because From Beyond is about to launch an all-out attack. So yeah, this episode is mostly about. So yeah, this episode mainly sets up the fact that there's going to be an all-out attack in the next episode and the one after that, because the last 2 episodes are the end of the arc. But this episode was mainly to set that up, and it's also meant to show just how much people are willing to do in order to pursue justice. And Masayoshi, he's the kind of guy who wants to save everybody. So he couldn't really go through with the plan in the first place, and it's in keeping with his character that he suddenly goes against the Prime Minister's wishes for the sake of what he perceives to be justice. So it's entirely in his character for him to just suddenly do this. And it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense why he would want to. He's been having nightmares lately about how he can't save everybody, and now the Prime Minister is basically telling him, "You can't save everybody. Go run and hide." But that's not how Masayoshi operates. So he points that out, and that sets up antics for the next episode. But yeah, this episode as a whole brought a lot of plot points together, while also kind of setting up that Masayoshi is basically defying the government at this point and wants to protect everybody. And I can imagine that having a lot of repercussions down the road. But yeah, this episode was interesting. I liked it, and it was definitely one of the more emotionally heavy episodes, even if it wasn't one of the more action-packed ones. But it is a good episode, and I do enjoy it. But anyway, if you guys haven't enjoyed this episode of Samurai Flamenco, what did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, so I would definitely appreciate if you did that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!